Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean Revolution. Tory Lanez moves prisons. Meg the Stallion has big problems. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Let's get straight into the Tory Lanez new information update. Salute.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, listen, this is the job, is to make sure that there is fairness under law in this situation. And with your son,
Yes.
There's now a question mark. And you're not a lawyer. It's not why I'm talking to you. My understanding is it's gotten bad enough for him on the inside after this stabbing that it is a miracle that he survived, that now he's being moved as we speak. Is that true, sir? And what does that mean to you?
Yes, that is correct. It's one of the things we've been concerned about, but he's being moved because it's a part of the prison's protocol. That when a situation like this happens, I think they believe it's better for him to be in another facility, and so he is being moved as we speak. One of the things, of course, we're concerned about is because my son is a high-profile person, and when things like this happen, there's always some kind of weird news going out trying to spin it to be something else. Maybe he went crazy in the prison and they moved him. There's a lot of stuff that happens, but the truth being that he is being moved right now as we speak, and we have concerns because, number one, he has just been discharged not many days ago from the hospital, and he was discharged with 14 stab wounds, an incident that collapsed his lungs that, again, thankfully, he is recovering, he's doing well, but now he has to take a 3-hour ride. And he is the victim in this situation. Those are the things that really concern me. He is the victim. He never provoked this incident in prison. And anybody that knows him, in fact, I've met many people going there to visit him, my wife and I, that will tell you that he is someone who is liked. He's not someone who's a troublemaker. I was with the COs, the correctional officers, in the hospital where he was taken after this incident, and the COs spoke to me. They said when they heard on the intercom that they had to transport somebody to the hospital, it was him. The guy looked at me and said, why him, of all people? Because he doesn't do anything like that, to warrant these kinds of things.
Well, listen, Mr. Peterson, we're going to stay on it. Not out of any deference to your son. I'm new to this story, but there's something about it that doesn't smell right. And we're going to stay on it until we figure out what this is really about and that justice is served here. And I hope he is safe, no matter which way it comes out. And we're a call away if we can help you with any concerns you have, okay?
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
All right. God bless. Stay well, and we'll be in touch. Thank you for watching.
You know what I'm saying? They smell blood in the water. See, the news media is sharks, They smell blood in the water. That's why they've been talking shit about Jay-Z. I'm hearing Piers Morgan. Was going at Meg saying she switched the story up. You see, remember Piers Morgan had to retract a statement made by Jaguar Wright about Jay-Z and them. A white guy like that, an arrogant one, he couldn't wait. This is Get Back. Piers Morgan with his high-profile platform, he's going to help destroy Meg Thee Stallion and some get back on Jay-Z for humiliating him, making him retract that Jaguar Wright situation.
Tory Lanez is currently recovering after being brutally attacked in prison by a man serving life. This all happened just days after Tory's team had reached out to Megan and Kelsey regarding a new witness testimony. This attack sparked speculation that Tory could have been targeted by people who don't want to see him freed. Now things are taking another turn as Tory's defense team has come out claiming that they have new camera footage that could prove his innocence. Hey guys, I hope all is well. Welcome back to The Truth Is, where I drop new videos exposing the truth weekly. In today's episode, we will be talking about the update on the Tory Lanez situation. Let's get right into it. While unfortunately, none of us besides Tory, Kelsey, Megan, and their security guard knows what truly happened that night, what we do know is that a lot of this situation doesn't make any sense. Some people think that I'm talking about this because I'm a fan of Tory Lanez. Honestly and truthfully, I'm not. I've never really gotten into his music, and he wasn't a rapper that I got into back when I still listened to hip-hop. The reason I feel so strong about this situation is because I see clearly this is all one giant setup. Like I said many times over, Tory was targeted because he tried to break the slave chains the record labels had put on him. Tory refused to continue to be a slave and managed to honorably deny re-signing to choose to be independent. The record labels didn't want to see that happen, so this all took place. Since the very beginning, there has been so many inconsistencies with this situation, things that don't add up from either side. Honestly, Meg, Kelsey, and even Tory have made the situation hard to believe. But the one thing I confidently feel is that Meg is lying about Tory shooting her. I'm not saying she didn't get shot, as again I wasn't there, even though she did initially claim she had stepped on glass and wasn't shot. But Meg does claim now that she was shot and a gun was discharged that night, as there was several 911 calls to indicate that. The only thing is, I don't understand why in the world Tory would have shot Meg. Why would he have gotten out of the car, chased her down, and shot at her when she wasn't a threat to him and was walking away? Why would he have had to pull out a weapon and use it on someone who wasn't a threat to him at all? Well, according to Tory, he didn't shoot Megan. He claims it was Kelsey. As recently, he spoke with Jason Lee from Hollywood Unlocked and told him that Kelsey was who shot Meg. He even claimed that he took the rap for Kelsey because he didn't want to see her go to prison. This makes sense because Tory was not only dating her, but never blamed her for anything.
In a text message between Tory and I said, "How are you? How you been?" He said, "Incredible, in very high spirits and preparing to physically come home this year." I said, "When? I need to come in there and get an interview, LOL. He said, "I can't say exact days, but I know I'll be home this year." I said, "How long you been gone? I'm so confused by your case." He said, "Actually, I have a crazy plan when I get back that I think you should know and be a part of because I'm only going to do one interview." And he said he's been gone 2.5 years. I said, "I want to be a part of that plan." He said, "It's honestly a bunch of suppressed evidence that was kept away from me during trial." I said, "Wack told me that, but didn't say what." He said, "Like through trial, they keep saying it was inconclusive on the gun DNA, but I always knew I never touched the gun. So I asked my lawyer to retest it. And sure enough, I was 102% excluded completely from everything, just like I said." I said, "Well, why didn't you just say who did it?" He said, "I took the rap for Kelsey, never wanted her to go to jail, and I never wanted Megan to get hurt or anything. So in me stopping her from getting shot, I got the raw deal. Crazy how life works. And to think they made me the poster boy for the unprotection of Black women, when in all honesty, I protected 2 Black women, one from getting shot and one from going to jail. Never said nothing in 8 to 10 years for them to live. It's a crazy, crazy place we live in." I said, "But why you ain't just say that?" And he said, "I lost my mother at 11 years old. I couldn't sleep with myself. I was the reason for taking a mother away from her kid. I just couldn't do it." Tory Lanez.
According to Jason Lee, Tory told him Kelsey was the one who shot Meg. He claims all he tried to do was break up the fight after Kelsey started shooting at Meg. Now, the reason I believe Meg didn't want to be honest about Kelsey doing it was because Roc Nation likely coached her. A representative of Roc Nation was present when Megan was questioned, which is strange. The same representative was at the trial as well. They used this perfect narrative to make Meg look like a victim who was abused by a short-tempered man, which sounds so much better than Meg getting shot by her own friend because she took her boyfriend. Tory is adamant that he didn't shoot Megan. He claims Kelsey did. This is quite interesting because Kelsey herself hasn't come out and said anything denying or confirming this. Just like in the trial, she claims to have lied or forgotten what she told the prosecution. You tell me what seems more believable. Tory shoots a non-threatening Meg Thee Stallion over a non-physical altercation, or Kelsey shooting Meg after it was already proven they were fighting because Meg had stolen her boyfriend. They literally were fighting each other over Tory Lanez and the betrayal that Meg did to Kelsey. Add this to the initial story told by one of the witnesses named Sean Kelly, and you see that Kelsey most likely did this. Kelly testified under oath that while he believes one of the girls fired the first shot, he saw the smaller gentleman fire 4 or 5 shots in quick succession, causing a woman to fall to the ground bleeding. Now, according to Tory, when he went in to stop Kelsey from shooting Meg, the gun went off, and that's why it looks like he shot the gun. One thing that I have been thinking about a lot was the fact that Meg stopped being friends with Kelsey after this situation. If you think about it, if Kelsey actually shot Meg, it would perfectly explain why they stopped being friends after that day. Meg knows Kelsey tried to end her over jealousy. To many people, it's pretty clear what happened that night, and according to Tory's team, they have even more evidence to prove he's innocent. A few days back, I covered the breaking news update that was released by Tory's team after he was targeted in prison. According to his team, Kelsey's own bodyguard had come out and confessed that he overheard Kelsey admitting she shot Meg. Tory's team made the assertion that because of Kelsey's bodyguard saying this and they reaching out to Megan and Kelsey, Tory was targeted in prison in an attempt to silence him forever.
In Unite the People's possession regarding a statement that was given to Unite the People by someone with information relevant to that case. The New York Post recently reached out to the prior district attorney, George Gascon, Megan Pete and her representatives, and Kelsey Harris and her representatives. The only party that responded last week was Megan Pete's representatives with a request for more information. A few days later, Mr. Peterson's brutally attacked in his jail cell. Unite the People represents Daystar Peterson in his appellate process. We filed an appellate brief and a writ of habeas corpus on his behalf. The district attorney's office has already responded. The case is fully briefed. We're just waiting for the appellate court's decision. We were willing to wait for the appellate process to play out. But given that brutal, unprovoked attack, we felt it necessary to come here today to provide you with this information. It is our intention to make a request to the governor to either pardon or commute the sentence of Mr. Peterson, so that when he recovers from this attack, he's not returned to a jail cell, but that he's allowed to go home and recover. Not long ago, Unite the People was approached by a gentleman named Bradley James. Mr. James informed us he was working as the bodyguard and driver for Ms. Kelsey Harris during Mr. Peterson's trial. As such, he was in close proximity and he had privy to conversations she was having with her husband and others. Mr. James informed us he was not under a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement and was free to speak with Unite the People, and that he was doing it because his conscience would not let him not speak and leave a man in prison for something he did not do. Mr. James informed Unite the People that he was a witness to the conversation Ms. Harris had, where she stated she had the gun, she fired it 3 times, Mr. Peterson grabbed her arm and knocked it down, and the gun fired 2 more times. In essence, Mr. Peterson never shot anybody, never even touched that gun, never fired the gun. This statement aligns with the statement of the only non-party witness to the case, Mr. Sean Kelly.
What's interesting is that even after Tory's team did the conference blaming Kelsey, she still didn't come out and say anything. She didn't go online denying the allegations or responding to them. To me, this is very telling. Now, yesterday, Tory's father and a congresswoman named Anna Paulina, who is now helping Tory, went on Piers Morgan to discuss the new footage they have found. Now, one of the interesting things Tory's father said during this interview was that he doesn't believe Meg was shot at all. According to him, all the evidence suggests she wasn't ever shot.
If your son was not responsible for Megan Thee Stallion being shot, we do know that indisputably she was shot. Who shot her?
First of all, the whole idea of her being shot is a speculation. That's a speculation. It's to this point has not been proven that she was even shot. But the reality is that in all of this, how can you have a situation where in pretrial, the police, LAPD, says that the bullet fragments they had collected from the hospital just mysteriously vanishes. It goes missing. I would think that evidence is something that is protected in any police department, but they just mysteriously go missing. So there's no bullet fragments to be presented at trial. You have a situation where a gun is shot, and the gun, which is supposed to be your main piece of evidence, does not even show up at court, but some picture of a weapon that resembles or is the type of weapon they say that was used. The weapon does not show up at court. There is absolutely no, we hear this point of 0.1% of his DNA on the gun. You know what that actually means when you investigate it? That over 1.5 billion black people on the planet that could have been their DNA. Yet my son is convicted of having used this gun. The whole thing stinks of a conspiracy, and it stinks of a cover-up.
Now, I know he's Tory's dad, and it's his job to protect his son. But honestly, with the amount of inconsistencies in this case since day one, I wouldn't be surprised if Meg wasn't shot at all, as Meg's initial story was that she stepped on glass. Considering that she was dancing and running around not long after this incident happened, It is believable that she was never shot, and that was honestly her first inconsistency. Then she also claimed she lied to Gayle King about sleeping with Tory, which is another inconsistency.
Yes, I lied to Gayle King. First of all, I didn't know she was even going to ask me about it. She's always want to talk about the shooting. Why did you ask me about Tory? That's not what this is about. Even if I was, I fucked like once, maybe twice on a drunk night. Kept catching me out of my mind.
So how are we honestly supposed to believe what Meg's saying if she has lied about so many things? She has also told the story in many different ways that don't line up with each other. Another important thing that most people defending Meg seem to overlook was the fact that Tory's fingerprints were supposedly not found on the gun, with it being reported that it was inconclusive. All of this is seeming to work on Tory's behalf. Now, his team also claims they have footage to prove Tory never did anything. According to the Congresswoman Anna, they have in their possession ring camera footage that would vindicate Tory Lanez and prove his innocence.
She admitted to lying to Gayle King. What I will also tell you is I'm also have been informed that there's actually ring footage, and that will likely also be released here pretty soon. I know we are helping to put the evidence out there to the American people, but I do believe that this is really a terrible case, and what was done to this family is unacceptable, and I will be continuing to push for his full pardon. I think that people owe them an apology. Furthermore, I'd like to finally say this. I actually spoke to Mr. Lanez on the phone in prison yesterday, actually, and he is actually going to get very involved in criminal justice reform to ensure that this doesn't happen to other people, because in his case, he has an incredible family supporting him. He has the financial backing to fight this, but many people don't. And so that's where we are going to continue to champion these causes at the federal level, even all the way to the White House and in Washington, D.C.
To be clear, do you actually think a gun was fired at all then? Or could that in itself be in question? And if it was fired, who do you think fired it?
I don't know who fired it, but what I will tell you is that based on the evidence that I've seen and that the Tory's attorneys presenting to the American people, I think that there are a lot of things in question. And I would say that, look, Pierce, you know that I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I grew up in a very rough area. I was at a high school where there was a gang shooting. When someone gets shot, there's evidence of that. My husband was shot in Afghanistan in 2014, and the evidence isn't lining up.
So you do not think she was actually shot?
I'm not a criminal investigator in that sense. So I'm just going to go on record for saying that the evidence as of right now is showing that there are no bullet fragments that have been presented, which I'll let people assume what they will not.
Okay. As you heard for yourself, according to Anna, there is ring camera footage that proves Tory's innocence. Now, recently, Meg's team has denied all the claims, rejecting what Tory's team is calling evidence. Rock Nation's lawyer, Alex Spiro, said this in response to the new evidence. Despite Mr. Lanez being convicted at trial by overwhelming evidence that included his own admission of his guilt, flanked by any ignorant person they can find, have pushed whatever misleading narrative they can. One by one, their misleading statements unravel, and all that is left is the simple truth. He was convicted by overwhelming evidence, and those who seek to traumatize the victim of the crime should be called out as foolish bullies. This is how Meg's team is handling this, calling people bullies and trying to use the same woke card they used from the very beginning. Tory's team is doing everything in their power to prove his innocence, and honestly, while I don't know what happened that night, I know we were never told the true story. I believe that at minimum, Tory should get another trial. This time, it should be a fair trial where all the evidence is presented and not mismanaged. If he's still found guilty after that, then sadly, it is what it is. But I feel right now, he's being held in prison to be taught a lesson and nothing else. There is currently a petition on change.org to get Tory pardoned. If you want to help him in any way, make sure you head over there and sign it. Well, I'm going to end this one here. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Y'all want to hear some cold BS?
The case between you and Tory Lanez, that day that you stabbed him allegedly.
Okay. That day, nothing was took place that day. Everything led up to that day, but that day I just came out in the morning to Cal, good morning, and I told him what's up. give him a little fist bump, ask him if everything is good. We had a little situation the night before and the day before.
So what was the situation the night before and the day before?
So I heard some rumors that he was trying to put money on my head. He felt uncomfortable living next to me. Said I was a threat. So I confronted him. And then I found out the same thing. Today he tried to put money on my head, so he said I put money on his head.
He lied.
We had a little discussion or whatever. So the next morning, that night, he said some shit. I'm kind of crazy. So
what exactly took place between you and Tory Lanez that day that you stabbed him allegedly?
Okay. That day, nothing much took place that day. Everything led up to that day, but that day I just came out in the morning to tell him, you know, good morning. And I told him what's up. Give him a little fist bump, ask him if everything is good. We had a little situation the night before and the day before.
So what was the situation the night before and the day before?
So I heard some rumors that he was trying to put money on my head. He felt uncomfortable living next to me. Said I was a threat. So I confronted him. And then I found out the same thing. Today he tried to put money on my head, so he said I put money on his head. We had a little discussion or whatever. So the next morning, that night, he said some shit. I'm kind of crazy. So the next thing, when I felt like a sting in my leg, I felt like, oh shit, he stabbed me. So I moved back and I kept stabbing more. And I seen that he threw something, so I was like, oh, this is that. So I just kept going. After he was yelling, help, screaming, please help me. I just picked him up and I tried protection. I said, I'm like, look at me. And then I just let him go. Like, I was saying, like, man, you trying to kill me?
What were you guys like? I know why, but why would he pick you out of all people to want to put money on your head? Well, what was the beef exactly about?
It was really no beef. He just talked a lot. And I had confronted him a while back about always saying certain around me. Like, I'll take a fade, I'll knife up, I'll put in his place. And to me, I feel like the second, third time hearing that in conversation, I was like, man, what's he trying to say? So I approached him and told him, like, what's up? Like, just go, I'll come into your cell, we'll do whatever. Like, let's play this game then. Because I felt like he was kind of antagonizing me, like testing me, like if someone was afraid or something. We were cool in the beginning. We were cool for like a year. We chilled, kicked it together, everything. It just,
they're not on that type of prison yard, Rochelle.
Okay.
No. They got like little fractions, but she was more like he was different. He started kicking it with certain people, you know. And when we started doing that, that's kind of when we had our little misunderstandings and we stopped talking as much. But we were neighbors for a while. I've been knowing him for about 2 years already.
Okay. And during the situation when you and him grew a friendship?
Yeah, we were cool. We chilled, we ate, we drank, we partied, kicked it. Yeah, we were good.
How much did the guy tell you that he paid to have you killed to get off the yard?
Oh, he said double whatever I was offering, but I never made that offer. That's what I didn't understand. He said that someone told him I offered people money to get rid of him. So he said he would give that person double and some dope and stuff. But truth be told, I never offered no money. Like, why would I offer somebody something I could do? It didn't make sense. But once he yelled and made threats and I'll have you killed and, you know, have a run up to your cell, all that comments, I felt like, all right, you're threatening my life. Like, there's nothing else to do but confront you. And that's what happened the next morning. I asked him, are we cool? He said, yeah, it's cool. And when I went to my cell, he followed me. Like I told you earlier.
Do you have any regrets of stabbing him?
Regrets? Shit.
Because you stabbed him 14 times.
Yeah. I know that. I wish I could do certain things over, you know, but at the end of the day, I mean, I felt like he threatened my life. So, I mean, I can't. Those actions felt necessary to me at the time, like the whole, in the moment, him coming to my cells, you know, grabbing me, walking, like, nah, I felt like, nah, it's fit. So I can't say I regret taking a stand for myself. No, not at all. I mean, I feel remorseful in a sense because it really didn't have to go that far, but I mean, he made his decisions and I made mine.
Did he end up having a weapon on him?
I mean, obviously, I got a stab mark in my leg, and with that going to the hole, I mean, they didn't find no weapons either. I don't understand that part.
But okay, so no weapons were found from him, only from you.
No weapon was the weapon I was using wasn't found either. There was no weapons found.
Where'd it go?
That's what in the video it shows me putting it on the floor. That's what they were asking me. I don't know. Nobody was around. It was just me and him on the chair. There wasn't no day room. Nobody was standing next to us. It was just me and him.
And who saved him?
I let him go. I picked him up. I told him, like, look at me. He looked at me, and then I just slammed him on the floor and kind of kicked the back of his butt with my foot, like pushed him, let him run away.
And did he run away, or did he crawl away, or how did he get away?
He ran, screaming.
I ain't gonna hold you. I don't know how you Tory fans gonna react to this. So I'm gonna do my best to be unbiased, but he just said him and Tory Lanez was cool. He just said him and Tory Lanez was cool, bro. And I ain't gonna hold you. You know what's crazy? One of those conversations, I'm not gonna pull it up, did say Tory and Dude was cool. And now a lot of stories is coming out now. I don't know, bro. You can tell Dude ain't telling the truth all the way. All the freaking way. He might have stabbed himself. I don't know if I want to, well, I don't want to know if I want to believe that. But Tory Lanez having his own protection in there, I mean, does it make sense? Hell yeah, it makes sense. But you in a dropout yard, so bro, I don't know. And then it's kind of crazy because at the same time, they was solo. Yeah. And now I'm not finna sit up here and be like, oh, bro, we got to do this and do that and do everything. Man, that's, I already told y'all. I talked to enough people. I got the rules. I got the structure. I got the handbook. That's on them. Unfortunately, that's just what it is. As far as Tory Lanez go, bro, that paperwork finally dropped. That's why I didn't make any videos or anything like that, because what I didn't want to do is sit up here and be like, Tory Lanez, the driver, his stuff, he didn't never file the paperwork yet. Well, it got filed yesterday. So yeah. So to all you online legal experts and all that stuff and everything like that, I talk to lawyers, bro. Sorry, can't get me. Anyways, I'll have an opinion about that probably later on, but this is far more important. If this is true, then unfortunately, this is just what happens, bro. Niggas get stabbed in the pen, bro. Cats get stabbed in penitentiary, bro. I don't know what to tell y'all. So Tory Lanez is cool with somebody who had a 14-year-old girlfriend and all that stuff and everything. I don't believe he knew that. I'm gonna keep it authentic. I don't believe Tory Lanez knew that at all. So I'm not gonna sit up here and do what people who don't like Tory Lanez would expect me to do and be like, oh, Tory Lanez is cool with a chomo. Nah. I don't know if Tory Lanez know the boy's story or anything like that. So I don't think we're going to find out about that one either. But Tory Lanez speaks, he's going to have a lot, and I mean a lot of things to say. And then they shipped him to a whole nother prison, which thank God they did. I ain't going to lie, Tory Lanez, in the most positive way I could say this, and it's not to be, because there's some people who are going to take this as racist, but it's really not. This is just how the politics go. Tory Lanez, you got to be amongst black people, bro. You got to be amongst your own kind, quote unquote. So all that, all that stuff that he did previously, man, we'll see. But like I say, if he was running and screaming and all that stuff, Tory Lanez ain't no gangster, ain't no thug, ain't none of that stuff. So shit, it is what it is. And who wouldn't have? I'm being fair, bro. Who wouldn't have? Now, all the super tough guys that's on the internet, man, I got stabbed 37 times, and I stabbed him 37 times. It was a bleed off, and he died, but I had a little more blood. I took some of his blood and scooped it in mine, and I was good to go. Yeah, all them cats and all them stories and everything, I'm not finished up here and debate with y'all about nothing. If your thugging is that hardcore, hey, bro, listen, tell your story, run your play. I ain't really tripping on that. But I will say this, man. Parts of that story was true. But the problem is what parts? Because if Tory Lanez stabbed him.
What was true is he stabbed Tory. That's the only truth.
Buddy must have known anyways. If they was cool like that and everything, and he knew Tory Lanez had it on him, and Tory Lanez basically threatened him, I hate to say this, bro, but if that's true, dude is in the right. Tory is in the wrong. If that's true. Regardless of how we feel about Buddy's piss poor, pathetic life and everything he got going, bruh, hey, we ain't him, he ain't us. So we may have our opinions about it, but at the end of the day, he's still alive. He still got to figure out a way to survive. I don't even think he should even be alive. I think he should have, you know what I mean, got electric chair, lethal injection or something like that, gas chamber or something, but
A rapper on rapper feud is getting some congressional attention from a Republican. I didn't have that one on my bingo card. The show starts in just a moment, but first, a word from our fabulous sponsor. All right, the Red Light Face Mask from Bond Charge is your go-to solution for radiant, youthful-looking skin. It's designed to help reduce the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles and promote a more even skin tone. It's the show on YouTube at Tommy Lahren is Fearless. It is not every day you have a House Republican advocating to get anyone out of jail, much less a rapper accused of shooting another rapper in the foot at a Hollywood house party. But stranger things have happened, I suppose. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna is indeed calling to free Tory Lanez and is asking California Governor Gavin Newsom to review the case and issue a pardon. Too bad he's too busy with his podcast, but we'll get to that later. Now, Rep. Anna Paulina Luna's reasoning is that his 10-year sentence is based on flawed evidence, political pressure, and prosecutorial bias. For those who aren't up on the latest hip-hop news, Lanez is serving a 10-year sentence after he was convicted of shooting at fellow rapper Megan Thee Stallion in the feet at a July 2020 party in Hidden Hills. Hills, you know, it's all the same. The foot, get it? All right. There's apparently new evidence that's come to light that could possibly and should maybe exonerate Lanez of this crime.
The prosecution failed to produce a single shred of forensic evidence tying Tory to the actual gun. His fingerprints weren't on it. His DNA was later found to be 100% nearly excluded from the gun, as shown in the worksheet that was provided to the defense late on the eve of the actual trial, after making a request for that very document. After trial, looking at this evidence, there is a 0.01% chance Tory's DNA was on the firearm. That's a difficult statistic to equate with the story as told by the prosecution, which may be why this was not present in trial. In fact, there were 3 people that night at the scene who tested positive for gunshot residues. One of those was Kelsey Harris, as Gianno mentioned, the assistant to Megan Pete. According to multiple sworn testaments that you've heard today, including one from the bodyguard and driver with Harris on the 2 days of the trial, Harris admitted to firing the weapon during an emotional outburst. Tory intervened to de-escalate, not to harm. It is important to note, the police did not fingerprint anyone else who had gunshot residue on them that night, only Tory. Why?
There's a twist. So if you're like me, you're probably wondering how the heck anyone, let alone a celebrity rapper, could actually be sent to serve actual time in California, because as we know, it's a very felon-friendly location. Well, my guess is that since the victim is also a celebrity rapper, Megan Thee Stallion, there was a little more pressure and more eyes on the case. Either way, this is interesting for sure. Now, for her part, Megan Thee Stallion posted on social media that Lanez did it and also F the hate campaign on the internet. Eloquent as usual. Here to weigh in and help us make sense of it all is Caldwell Institute for Public Safety founder and Fox News political analyst, Gianno Caldwell. All right, Gianno, I know you're very passionate about this. We heard, that possibly he could be exonerated here. I want you to give my audience what they don't know and your analysis of actually what went down.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. And I got to tell you, I've been involved in looking into this case for almost about 6 months exactly now. It was brought to me by a board member, Diana London, with the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety, who regularly says she believed Tory Lanez was innocent. And as I looked through the case and I noticed a number of irregularities in the case, I began to come to that same conclusion that this was an innocent person. Let me take you back to the very beginning. First and foremost, we got a George Soros-funded prosecutor named George Gascon who was prosecuting this case. He was, at the time, coming off of his second recall attempt. He was in severe trouble as he had lost support in numerous demographics, key demographics to his electoral success, including Black women. And he needed to do whatever he could to possibly win this election. I believe if Jesus Christ was Tory Lanez's attorney.
Revolutionary salute to our family. Golden mask for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute.
Tory Lanez would have still lost his case no matter what. Tory's attorneys have alleged prosecutorial misconduct, suppressing of evidence, exculpatory evidence being withheld. And I believe them based on the facts. Let me take you to Kelsey Harris, who was in the car, because there was 4 people in the car that night. Tory's bodyguard, Kelsey Harris, Megan Pete, also known as Megan Thee Stallion, and then Tory himself. When they got into this particular altercation, Megan Pete, Megan Thee Stallion, and her best friend, according to the new evidence that has been mentioned by way of an affidavit from Kelsey Harris's bodyguard during the days of trial, he admits to hearing her say in the car to a male passenger who's believed to be her child's father that she, one, how could she testify without telling on herself? Number one, she went to court that day, pleaded the fifth. The prosecution gave her immunity. Immunity from what? She was never accused by the prosecution. She was never accused by Megan Pete. Why plead the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination? That didn't make sense to me. According to the bodyguard in another conversation in that car during this same period of time, she says that she got the gun out the car, which was in her bag, shot the gun in the air 3 times. Tory ran over there to stop her, pushing her hand down, and 2 more gunshots went into the ground. That is where it's reasonable to believe the wounds came from for Megan Thee Stallion. But why is it that they never tested her DNA onto the gun? You knew that she had gunpowder on her hand. They found that out. Why didn't they test that? Why is it that they added this enhancement to his case? Now, enhancements are used for violent gang members, people with a history of brutal crime. George Gascon has had numerous people who have had brutal crimes that he didn't recommend an enhancement. One by the name of Raymond Danger Gonzalez, who murdered, premeditated 2 individuals, including a teenager, and he stole their money. No recommendation for enhancements from George Gascon. Or the General Hospital actor Johnny Wagner. He was brutally murdered. No recommendation for enhancements. So this led me to believe instantly that George Gascon had put on a front. He wanted to pretend to be tough on crime so he could have a silver bullet for his next election because he had a Black woman that he can say that he protected. And it's insane that unfairness is pushing through our justice system, but we've seen this with numerous cases with George Gascon. And that's why the Caldwell Institute got involved in this case, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
So I want to kind of break down what you said there and make sure I'm getting it correctly. Basically, what you're telling me is that, and what we heard as well, is that Tory Lanez was just trying to de-escalate it and, smacked the gun down to, try to lessen the damage or the violence or the carnage that could occur. And then that's what happened. Why do you think Megan Thee Stallion, we saw her social media post, why do you think she's gunning for Tory Lanez so hard? Do you think that she actually thinks that he did it? Or do you think that maybe there's some other motivations there? Because she's pretty adamant that he shot her.
Well, I can't speak to what her thoughts are. I can only surmise what I think makes sense logically. One, you said from the very beginning that he did it. And you never mentioned your best friend. Your best friend got immunity. Immunity from what? And this has been a career high for her since that incident occurred. So if people come out and, for those who may not know, Tory Lanez recently was stabbed in prison multiple times, almost lost his life, stabbed in the back of the head, stabbed in the face, stabbed in the stomach, literally almost died. And there's an instance for that I want to get into in our next bite. But yeah, if people find out that she lied about the situation, then that would be career suicide for her. She would lose a lot of support. You put a man in jail for 10 years, and he's already served almost 3 of those years. And to that point that I mentioned earlier, in terms of him getting stabbed in prison, I've been working on an op-ed with the New York Post, almost a month working on this op-ed. We had just got it to the point where they felt comfortable enough to go out for comment to George Gascon, Kelsey Harris, and Megan Thee Stallion's camp. Megan Thee Stallion's camp reached out and said, hey, we want to know what you have in an op-ed. We want more information. The Post set up a call with them. They told them what they had. I'm not sure exactly what details they shared. But then days later, Tory Lanez is almost murdered in prison. Is there a connection there? I don't know, but it's quite eerie, to be honest. So this is a really messy ball, one in which, as a 10-year member of the press, I'm really bizarrely intrigued why there hasn't been members of the press all over this story, because there's been so many elements that does not make sense and beg open questions. We have so many questions that need to be answered. Prosecution couldn't answer it, the media couldn't answer it, and certainly Megan Pete has not answered it.
Yeah. Also, I think that you're right, probably about Gascon, but also about the media. They don't want to cross Megan Thee Stallion because she's a huge star. We know that she performed for a Kamala Harris rally, quite inappropriately, I might also add. But I think that they don't want to go after her. They don't want to question her because, of course, that's taboo. You can't question, let alone a celebrity, but a Black female celebrity. Oh, we know what the ramifications of that are. So this is all pretty wild. Thank you for getting involved in this because, it's not often that you have not only a member of Congress who is saying, hey, free Tory Lanez, but also you putting your weight behind it. It's something that's important that needs to be heard. Thank you for bringing all this to our attention. We certainly have to pay attention to it. And your point is well taken that in California, it's very hard to be locked up for anything. So very weird that this resulted in a 10-year sentence. That's pretty unheard of.
It absolutely is. And that's why we put a petition on the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety website, which is what the Congresswoman tweeted out. We've had names like Drake tweeted out to his 149 million followers on Instagram, Ty Dolla $ign, dozens of other celebrities, notables, who just want fairness. If you're a person who may say, you look at it and say, no, I'm not so sure, Tory might have done it, or you believe that he did it, does he deserve an enhancement? He doesn't have a record of violence in his background. I mean, we know that. So I would say that he doesn't deserve an enhancement, and these are 3 gun-related crimes. If you can prove that Kelsey Harris, it was her gun, he stopped her, then there's no real case. So that's why it's just so intriguing. I felt that it was so necessitous to get behind this, and we put up a petition just last week, which is almost at 300,000 signatures, because the governor, Gavin Newsom, I know we've all had things to say about the governor and his politics, and that's fine, it's political discourse. But this is an action that he can take. He can right an injustice by pardoning Tory Lanez, getting him out of jail right away, take a look at the evidence, that the prosecution didn't want us to see, and say, enough is enough. Bring them out. Like I mentioned, MLK said it quite clearly. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I started my institute to hold criminals accountable. So this is something much different for me. I wasn't expecting to be involved in the case of getting somebody out of jail. But when you see such an injustice like this, I have no choice but to act, Tommy.
Right. Well, maybe President Trump will take a look. We know that, this is important stuff to him as well. Final question on this particular point. Do you think Gavin Newsom has it in him to go against Megan Thee Stallion and the establishment that surrounds her?
Well, I pray that he does. I know, as you just mentioned, Megan Thee Stallion is one of the biggest elites in the country, probably around the world. She's connected to some of the biggest beacons of political power that there are, business interests. She has a lot of money and support and power behind her. Tory Lanez is a victim. He doesn't have that kind of support and power that she has. So it's certainly it has a negative balance on his side because he doesn't have that kind of support, and he's never had people come out like me to speak and say that I believe this guy's innocent, or even write an op-ed, or either other people who have joined this effort. The Congresswoman, there's never been this kind of thing. Megan has a lot of power. So I'm hopeful that he will look at the facts. I'm hopeful that he would act with integrity on this issue. And I'm hopeful he would do justice in this issue because Tory has a son at home. He needs to get home to his kid. And the fact that he almost was murdered for something I believe he didn't do is just, irreparable harm to the justice system itself.
You're exactly right on that. Well, we'll keep following it. Thank you for bringing light to it, of course, with your wonderful institute. I want to talk about some more things that are going viral in pop culture and on social media right now. You don't have to be a sports fan or a WNBA fan. There aren't many, first of all, WNBA fans, but that's just a little shot there. It's just obvious. I speak the truth. But there's a little spat that's going on right now between two
it gets scarier. This Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion situation that we've been covering for the last year and a half, it's scary. And it gets scarier the more you dig through the rabbit hole, because the deeper you go, the quicker you realize this is much bigger than Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion. There's a lot more characters at play here who participated in a railroading of Tory Lanez. And they didn't participate in a railroading of Tory Lanez because they had this infinity for Megan Thee Stallion or they care for Megan Thee Stallion. As far as I'm concerned, Megan Thee Stallion was also used as a pawn in this situation. This is much deeper than celebrity culture. This goes to politics. See, as we dig deeper and we learn more about the situation, new characters begin to get introduced, like George Gascon, the district attorney for Los Angeles, who just lost his re-election.
We heard, that possibly he could be exonerated here. I want you to give my audience what they don't know and your analysis of actually what went down.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. And I got to tell you, I've been involved in looking into this case for almost about 6 months exactly now. It was brought to me by a board member, Diana London, with the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety, who regularly says she believed Tory Lanez was innocent. And as I looked through the case and I noticed a number of irregularities in the case, I began to come to that same conclusion that this was an innocent person. Let me take you back to the very beginning. First and foremost, we got a George Soros-funded prosecutor named George Gascon who was prosecuting this case. He was, at the time, coming off of his second recall attempt. He was in severe trouble as he had lost support in numerous demographics, key demographics to his electoral success, including Black women. And he needed to do whatever he could to possibly win this election. I believe if Jesus Christ was Tory Lanez's attorney, Tory Lanez would have still lost his case no matter what.
When Gascon first got elected, a lot of his progressive policies sounded great in theory, and it sounded like something that the people of LA wanted, like zero bail policy for like 95% of crimes until people realized that their perpetrators were being released, or, like minors not being charged in adult courts until people realized that people were committing murders intentionally and sending 16 and 15-year-olds to commit these murders intentionally, knowing that those 16-year-olds will be released by 25. So people were killing people's brothers and fathers and sisters and being released in 9 years. And they felt like this was severely unfair. So they turned on Gascon, right? And when Gascon tried to get reelected, he realized fairly quickly, they not messing with me, bro. Like, these people are not feeling me no more. It got so bad for Gascon, they were literally trying to recall him and get him out of here. They wanted him gone. And he was public enemy number one for a lot of conservatives, and they would use him as the greatest examples of the failures of progressive policies in these urban cities. And people will look at Los Angeles and the crime rates and how unsafe the streets were, and they will blame it all on Gas Khan. Gas Khan understood this. He understood the public backlash coming from Twitter, understood the narrative, and he understood he was losing supporters. So him doing this, him going full progressive mode, doing things in his Tory Lanez case that he didn't do for other cases to try to win over the hearts of rap fans, of black women who support Megan Thee Stallion, to send a message, that's not too far-fetched, to be honest. At first, I probably thought it was. But now as I look deep, that's not too far-fetched, bro.
Tory's attorneys have alleged prosecutorial misconduct, suppressing of evidence, exculpatory evidence being withheld. And I believe them based on the facts. But why is it that they never tested her DNA onto the gun? You knew that she had gunpowder on her hand. They found that out. Why didn't they test that? Why is it that they added this enhancement to his case? Now, enhancements are used for violent gang members, people with a history of brutal crime. George Gascon has had numerous people who have had brutal crimes that he didn't recommend an enhancement. One by the name of Raymond Danger Gonzalez, who murdered, premeditated 2 individuals, including a teenager, and he stole their money. No recommendation for enhancements from George Gascon. Or the General Hospital actor Johnny Wagner. He was brutally murdered. No recommendation for enhancements. So this led me to believe instantly that George Gascon had put on a front. He wanted to pretend to be tough on crime so he could have a silver bullet for his next election because he had a black woman that he can say that he protected. And it's insane that unfairness is pushing through our justice system, but we've seen this with numerous cases with George Gascon. And that's why the Caldwell Institute got involved in this case, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
The playbook that Gascon tried to run isn't a new playbook. It's actually a pretty effective playbook. Gascon was just so bad and did too much damage that it was too late for him. It didn't work. But the playbook is ran in the presidential election almost every 4 years. Think about it, bruh. Think about it.
He gonna pay for it too.
How come the police shooting of black men aren't publicized until it's election year? Think about it for a second, bro. Think about all the instances of police shootings that come to your mind immediately. How come those incidents only happen? Well, they happen frequently, but they only get publicized and blasted to the masses in terms of CNN, Fox News, every news outlet, social media, marching, protesting, looting. All the chaos happens during the election year. That's because you know what happens? Yo, some of that money gets thrown out to these media companies, gets marketed. They push the money into spreading and publicizing the police shooting because they want to fearmonger. They want to create this illusion that they're about to step in and save you from this big bad monster. Then once they get elected, the big bad monster that you thought was prevalent and a really big deal, you come to find out, okay, those are fringe cases. Those cases probably happen once in 1,000. You, like, bro, in your life, you'll probably never experience that. But you go 4 years without really thinking about it. And then right when the election year comes again, boom, you got another big story that's everywhere, and now they want to fearmonger you again. That's what George Gascon tried to do. After years of allowing murderers to go free, allowing robbers and looters to come out without any bond, he wanted to be harder on Tory Lanez than literal murderers. He wanted to give Tory Lanez enhancements that he didn't give to actually people who killed people. Even if you believe that Tory Lanez is guilty, think about it. Do you think it's fair that Tory Lanez would get a gun enhancement when people who have actually killed people don't? It doesn't make sense, right? And I'm not talking about people already serving life. I'm talking about people who have literally killed somebody and come home in like 10 years. At this point, it's not if Tory Lanez is going to get released, it's when is Tory Lanez going to get released. Because the justice system is going to prevail, bruh. This level of corruptness has to be corrected for the sake of our Constitution. Now, Tory Lanez's father and Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who is also really close friends with Trump, has been campaigning on behalf of Tory Lanez. And you know this situation is bad. You know it's really corrupt. When you have people who are on the opposite side of things, who usually don't agree when they start agreeing on things. When you have Piers Morgan calling Megan Thee Stallion inconsistent and a liar, you know you have a problem on your hands here, bruh. Now, Anna Paulina seen Trump yesterday. I'm sure she talked to Trump about this. Now, she's calling on Governor Newsom to pardon Tory Lanez. But it don't even have to be a full-on pardon. All they literally have to do is get rid of the gun enhancement. The gun enhancement is why Tory Lanez is currently in jail right now. Without the gun enhancement, Tory Lanez will be out of jail right now. He will be, he'll be out. Like, it'll be time served. You take away the gun enhancement, and Tory Lanez has served enough time. He qualified for that 85%. He'll be out right now. So this is not a situation of, free Tory Lanez because, pardon him, he's 100% innocent. Okay, cool. All right. But this is a situation of take away the gun enhancement that was very unusual and don't happen to a lot of people under God's con. Tory Lanez's father and Congresswoman Luna was on Piers Morgan today. And while on Piers Morgan, they gave such a compelling argument that even Piers Morgan had to call out Megan Thee Stallion for being inconsistent and lying.
I don't think you need to be a conspiracy theorist, Representative Luna, to see there's a lot of inconsistency going on here. She denied to Gayle King that there was any relationship with Tory. She then admits that there had been, that she lied. She doesn't admit to lying about the circumstances of the shooting, but certainly this goes to the heart of her veracity.
That's bad news for Megan Thee Stallion altogether. When you have Piers Morgan on a platform this big calling you a liar and claiming that your past statements of you lying can actually be used to determine the veracity of your overall statements on Tory Lanez, that's bad. Now, Tory Lanez's father actually laid out a pretty solid case for Tory Lanez. On his platform, he actually spoke to the corruptness of what took place to Tory Lanez at trial. I was there when Sean Kelly was supposed to testify. Sean Kelly was the defense witness. Tory Lanez and them called Sean Kelly to the witness stand because Sean Kelly gave a statement to the police testifying that he seen a woman fire the gun. When Sean Kelly got to that office, man, the prosecutors brought him upstairs. And by the time Sean Kelly came back downstairs to testify, his story has completely changed. And a lot of us sat there with our mouths open like, what? Sean Kelly's statement got so bad and it was so contradicting to what he told the police that Tory Lanez's team filed or they petitioned to treat Sean Kelly as a hostile witness. That's when your witness turns against you. So now you got to treat him as if it's a cross-examination. And that's what they did. Sean Kelly had this entire story he already gave to where he saw a woman shoot. Then when he hopped on the stand, he said he saw a woman shoot and a man shoot.
Walking through this, I'll never forget the day when we're sitting outside of the courtroom getting ready for court to reconvene. And imagine the only independent witness, which should have been the only objective witness in this case, was a gentleman by the name of Sean Kelly. Interestingly enough, the only person that would be able to have an unbiased viewpoint of what actually happened. Imagine that the prosecution did not want to call that witness. Why? This is the only independent witness, but yet you don't want to call this person because obviously his bird's eye view will not support what you want the narrative to be. And so when we sat outside, my wife and I, we saw this gentleman come in and we sat down and it was identified for us that, oh, this is Mr. Sean Kelly. He's sitting across from us on the other side of the hallway. And as we sat there, the prosecution came out, one of their detectives or investigators rather, and one of the prosecutors, they took this gentleman, they went upstairs, I believe it was to the 14th floor at that time. By the time this man came down, the witness they did not want to call, this man came down and his testimony became so embellished with other nonsense that people who saw it just looked at it and said, this is crazy.
I was there, and I can speak for the temperature in the room. People were shocked and stunned. It became a battle. It became very hostile very quickly. The defense called a witness, and the witness turned against them after a meeting with the prosecutors minutes before he was called. I'm saying that's crazy, that's foul. And regardless of if you think Tory Lanez is guilty or not, you should look at that and say, that's crazy, bro. How is this allowed? How? Now, Tory Lanez's father also laid out a case in terms of the DNA, in terms of, the gun fragments that weren't found, and he spelled this out pretty perfectly.
Just one last question, because you made me think of this. But if your son was not responsible for Megan Thee Stallion being shot, we do know that indisputably she was shot. Who shot her?
First of all, the whole idea of her being shot is a speculation. That's a speculation. It's to this point has not been proven that she was even shot. That in all of this, how can you have a situation where in pretrial, the police, LAPD, says that the bullet fragments they had collected from the hospital just mysteriously vanishes. It goes missing. I would think that evidence is something that is protected in any police department, but they just mysteriously go missing. So there's no bullet fragments to be presented at trial. You have a situation where a gun is shot, and the gun, which is supposed to be your main piece of evidence, does not even show up at court, but some picture of a weapon that resembles this is the type of weapon they say that was used. The weapon does not show up at court. There is absolutely no, we hear this point of 0.1% of his DNA on the gun. Do you know what that actually means when you investigate it? That over 1.5 billion black people on the planet could have been their DNA.
This is crazy. I don't think anybody can look at this case regardless of how they feel. Even if they feel like in their heart, man, Tory Lanez, you did it. You can't, with a clear mind that's not biased, look at this and say, no gun was presented, no bullet fragments was presented, testimonies changed a lot. The witness claimed that he seen a woman shoot. Then he claimed he seen Tory shoot after the prosecutors coached him. The witness, who was actually in the car, Kelsey, took the stand and testified that she didn't see Tory Lanez shoot her. She don't know what happened. Bro, anybody can look at this and say, yo, Tory Lanez, you ain't get a fair shot in court. And I think that's what people are asking for, a fair shot. They're not saying, yo, overturn it. And no, yo, overturn it, but bro, bring it back to court. Bring it back to court and have them have another shot in court. But let me know in the comment section what
leaves federal court after taking the stand at Sean Diddy Combs' racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking trial, and tells the jury about his Porsche being torched while he was dating Cassie.
This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me.
I look at 9 moments from the rapper's testimony and what had the courtroom laughing. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Kid Cudi, of course, is a rapper. He's an actor and a producer. But this week, he added Diddy trial witness to his list of titles. His legal name is actually Scott Mescudi. And he walked into court, raised his right hand, and as any other witness would, swore to tell the truth. You might be thinking, I thought this trial was about sex trafficking and prostitution. Well, it is. But Sean Combs also faces a racketeering conspiracy charge, or RICO. He's accused of using his businesses to carry out and cover up crimes. And Kid Cudi, the government alleges, is the victim of one of those crimes, specifically arson. Combs, for his part, has pleaded not guilty to all of the charges, and he maintains his relationship with ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura was one that involved domestic violence, but not sex trafficking. And Cassie is the connection between Combs and Kid Cudi. Back in 2011, Kid Cudi, or Scott Mescudi, testified that he and Cassie were dating. He believed that she was broken up with Sean Combs at the time, but that may not have been completely true. Kid Cudi took the stand wearing jeans, a leather jacket, and a white shirt, and he told the jury about that night in December 2011 when Cassie called him very upset. Mescudi testified, well, I got a call from Cassie around 5:30 or 6 a.m. and she told me that Sean Combs had found out about us. I was really confused, but she asked me to pick her up. She sounded really stressed on the phone, nervous, scared, so I went to go pick her up, and yeah. Mescudi went on to explain why he was confused. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson asked, you testified that Ms. Ventura told you Mr. Combs found out about us. What was your understanding of what Mr. Combs had found out? Mescudi answered that me and her were dating. Johnson asked, and you also testified that you were confused when you heard that. Mescudi answered yes. Johnson asked, why were you confused? Mescudi answered, because I didn't think she was dealing with him. Johnson asked, and you mentioned that you went to pick her up. Is that right? Mescudi answered, yes. Mescudi testified that he drove Ventura to a hotel in Los Angeles about 15 minutes from his home. Then he got a call from a woman who was a friend of Cassie's and an assistant of Sean Combs. Her name was Capricorn Clark. Clark said that Sean Combs and an affiliate were in my house and she was in a car. She was forced to go along with them over there. Johnson asked, and what, if anything, did Ms. Capricorn say about where she was at the moment? Mescudi said, she was in a car outside of my house waiting for them. Johnson asked, and what, if anything, did Capricorn say about where Mr. Combs was at that moment? Attorney Brian Steele objected, and it was overruled. Mescudi testified, in my house. Johnson asked, after you spoke to Capricorn, what did you do next? Mescudi answered, I got in my car and went to my house. Johnson asked, that phone call? No. Johnson followed up, did anyone go with you when you went to your house after that phone call? Mescudi answered, no. Mescudi said he drove to his house. It was a 15-minute drive or so from the hotel, as I mentioned, where he was with Cassie. And on the way, he called Sean Combs. He had his number from years ago. He described what he said to Sean Combs. Mescudi testified, I'm going to be very candid. I said, mother effer, you in my house? And he was like, what's up? I was like, mother effer, are you in my house? And he said, I just want to talk to you. I was like, I am on my way over right now. He was like, I'm here. Mescudi said that Combs' voice was calm. He drove to his house, which he said had security cameras, but they weren't working that night. When he arrived, Mescudi said the cameras appeared as if they had been moved to the side. Mescudi said, some gifts that I bought for my family were opened, some stuff I got from Chanel, and then my dog was locked up in my bathroom. Our content shows just how important personal safety is, and that is especially true when it comes to protecting your privacy online. You would be absolutely shocked at how much of your personal information is out there, like addresses and phone numbers. Come a time when you learned that your car had caught on fire. Mescudi answered yes. Johnson asked, how did you learn that your car caught fire? Mescudi answered, my dog's babysitter called me in the morning. Now keep in mind, it's 6:30 or 7 in the morning. The questioning continued. Johnson asked, what was your understanding of where your dog's babysitter was located when she called you? Mescudi said, at my house. Johnson asked, was it your understanding that your dog's babysitter was telling you what was happening in real time? Mescudi answered, yes. Johnson asked, and what did your dog's babysitter say to you about what she saw? Mescudi answered, she told me my car was on fire. Johnson asked, was anyone else present at your house at the time? Mescudi said no. Johnson asked, where were you? Mescudi said, I was at my ex-girlfriend's sister's house. Johnson asked, approximately how far away from your house were you? Muscuddy answered, like 45 minutes or something like that. Johnson asked, where was your car at the time your babysitter called? Muscuddy said, in the driveway. Muscuddy said his friend Chip took photos of the Porsche as he drove back to his house. The photos show a hole in the top of the Porsche. There's also damage to the driver's seat from where the Molotov cocktail left burn marks, and there's damage to the door. The car was so badly damaged, Muscuddy said it couldn't be repaired. When he arrived at his house, he said the bottle from the Molotov cocktail was on the ground. It had been in the driver's seat. When asked his reaction to his car being torched, it was very simple. Muscuddy said, he said, what the F word? Muscuddy said the cops were at his house and he filed a police report, and it was his understanding this was no accident. A couple of days later, Muscuddy said he had his manager set up a meeting with Combs through his head of security, D-Rock, at the Soho House. Muscuddy testified, I walked in and I met D-Rock. He was escorting me into the room, and then I got to the room. It was one wall was all windows, and Sean Combs was standing there staring out the window with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain. Yeah, it was just me and him in the room. No security, nobody. Muscuddy said, we discussed, pretty much the whole story about how me and Cassie first started to date to what it was to how it ended. And his whole point was, we were homies, that was my girl. I let him know that, she told me they were broken up and I took her word for it. Yeah. Johnson asked, what was Mr. Combs' demeanor during this meeting? Muscuddy said, very calm. He kept offering me water. He offered me water twice. Johnson asked, what was your reaction to his demeanor? Muscuddy said it was very off-putting. It was weird that he was so calm. Muscuddy said Cassie then showed up, and he testified he was upset to find out that she had gone back to Sean Combs. He told the jury, quote, she pretty much kind of explained that we fell in love and things just happened and, Muscuddy testified, yeah, we stood up, shook hands, and as I was shaking his hand, I said, what are we going to do about my car? I made sure to ask him right when our hands were clasped together, where he couldn't run away and I could look at him square in his eyes. And he looked right back at me, very cold stare, and said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, okay. I took my hand from his and he said, wait, I thought we were cool. Is there a problem? I was like, you said you didn't burn my car, right? You said that's your word. He said, yeah. I was like, that's it. When asked again, Muscuddy said Combs's tone of voice was very calm. And after that day, there were no more break-ins at his home and no more car fires. A couple of years later, Muscuddy said he saw Combs at the Soho House again, this time with his daughter. He said Combs said, man, I just want to apologize for everything and all of the BS. There were no more conflicts with Sean Combs, and Muscuddy said he made peace with it. Then came the cross-examination by attorney Brian Steele, who represented Young Thug. Steele set out to score some points, and he did. Steele questioned Muscuddy about whether he knew that fingerprints and DNA samples were taken from his Porsche back in 2012. Muscuddy said he called police about the incident a few times, but was not aware that DNA from the car came back as a female sample. Steele also pointed out that there were no sightings of Sean Combs around Muscuddy's property. Then the conversation turned to Cassie Ventura. Muscuddy confirmed that Cassie ended their relationship in January of 2012, and he was confused because they had been talking and seeing each other for about a year. And he said at that time, he wasn't aware that Cassie was seeing Sean Combs at the same time. Steele asked, Ms. Ventura was not frank with you, true? Muscuddy answered, true. Steele asked, she played you. That was your words, right? Muscuddy said yes. Steele asked, you had no clue. When she played you, she was convincing about that, right? Muscuddy said, no clue. Steele asked, you were with her a lot, right? Muscuddy said, mm-hmm. Steele asked, true? Muscuddy said yes. Steele then pointed out that Sean Combs actually asked Muscuddy in 2011 to do a song with Cassie Ventura. That was how the two met. Steele asked, you were in a studio doing your art with Ms. Ventura, that true? Muscuddy said yes. Steele asked, and that's how you guys really became close, right? Muscuddy said, we were cool before. Muscuddy asked, and this didn't hurt your relationship, right? It was nice. You enjoyed the time with her, true? Muscuddy said, yeah, it was truly just friends at that time. Steele asked, Mr. Combs wasn't around you and Ms. Ventura when you were with her, right? Muscuddy said no. Steele asked, and she wasn't getting all these text messages from him to your knowledge when you were with her, right? Muscati said, not to my knowledge. Steele also confirmed with Muscati that Cassie told him that Combs was physically abusive toward her, but she never told Muscati that Sean Combs sexually abused her. Steele also got Muscati to say that Cassie Ventura was living two different lives when she was spending time with him. And during that meeting with Combs at the Soho house in 2012, after his car was torched, he said Combs was gracious, made no threats, and had no weapons on him. During redirect, Emily Johnson used Muscati to remind the jury about incidents where Cassie and Capricorn Clark confided in him about Combs's volatile behavior. Toward the end, Muscati admitted that it was that behavior that made him walk away from his relationship with Cassie. Johnson asked, why did your relationship with Ms. Ventura end despite having feelings for her? Muscati said the drama was just getting out of hand and kind of wanted to give her some space. Johnson said, what drama are you talking about? Muscati said the break-in and everything. Johnson asked, why did you want to give it space? Muscati said, just feels like things were just getting out of hand, and for my safety, for her safety, I just thought. Muscati's responses prompts an objection in a sidebar where the parties go back and forth about whether or not it's proper for the jury to hear the rest of what he was going to say. Steele told judge at a sidebar that he was going to move for a mistrial because he expected Muscati to answer that Combs was violent and he had been told that Combs had had other people killed. The defense is adamant it's highly prejudicial against Combs, but the government says they're just trying to get him to talk about his safety concerns that he had at the end of his relationship with Cassie. Ultimately, the judge decided that Emily Johnson must move on from this type of questioning. The testimony of Kid Cudi ended with him telling the jury that he believed that Sean Combs lied to him.
So what was it like in the courtroom when Kid Cudi was testifying? Elizabeth Milner with Law and Crime was there. So Elizabeth, were the jurors, did it seem like they knew who Kid Cudi was when he walked in and took the stand?
Yeah, it didn't seem that way from what I could tell, but I feel like from everyone in the gallery, they were there and they were ready to see Kid Cudi, see him walk inside that courtroom. It felt kind of like a movie moment a little bit where everyone's turned around and then all of a sudden he just walks across to the witness stand, takes his seat, does the oath, all that. But, him coming in, he was super casual. He had a motorcycle jacket. He had a white t-shirt on. Even like from other witnesses that I could see testifying, they're always in suits. They're in more professional type of wear and that thing. But as far as Kid Cudi is concerned, yeah, motorcycle jacket, his earring, his jeans, just walked up to the stand pretty casual. I didn't see the cigarette smoking or anything like that. But, when he was on the stand, he was very casual even throughout. He just seemed like he was just there to kind of speak his piece, say his part, and then just kind of move on from it. And he seemed like he was just kind of just ready to get this part over with for sure.
And he seemed like he was a little bit of a charmer, actually, on the stand. And I'm getting that just from the transcripts because it sounds like he was just authentic. He was just him. And there were some laughs from what I understand in the courtroom from some of his testimony, even though this is not a laughing matter. Tell me of what happened with the laughing.
Yeah, so he had some interesting one-liners when he was on the stand testifying, a lot during the direct. So one of the big things was just his reaction to his car being blown up with a Molotov cocktail. And
what the F?
Yeah, they were AUSA Emily Johnson was just like, what was your reaction to everything? And then he just candidly said, what the F? Obviously, I can't say, the real way he
I think we would all have that reaction if our car was blown up.
Exactly. And so he was very just real while he was on the stand. And to your point, Anjanette, very authentic because when he didn't understand a question, he would be like, say what now? And just like very casual in tone, even though he's testifying in federal court and all of that stuff. And then another big moment where he got kind of a big reaction from the gallery and some of the jurors too was just him explaining just the meeting at Soho House where him, Diddy, and Cassie all met together to kind of hash everything out. He explained that when he was first brought in, he was brought in by Diddy's security guard, D-Rock. And then he said Diddy was just sitting over there in that portion of Soho House in a room over there, just looking like a Marvel supervillain. Those were literally his words inside the courtroom. And a lot of people just kind of laughed at this moment. I don't think Diddy necessarily found this particularly funny, but he definitely got a big reaction from everyone in the courtroom.
But that paints a picture, because I think we can all kind of see that, like a Bruce Wayne moment where you walk it, you envision that. You walk into a room and there's a big window and there's a guy standing there. We can kind of all, it paints a picture of what he encountered. It sounds nuts. And then he basically told the jury that he thought Sean Combs was lying, which I found amazing that was allowed in. He thought Sean Combs was lying when Sean Combs was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Your car got blown up. What do you mean?
Yep. Diddy lying about everything. Yeah, I was surprised that part got in, because that was kind of more towards the end of his testimony where he kind of got that little portion in. But he seemed like he knew who was behind this the entire time. When he was asked whether it was accidental or intentional, he was firm in believing that this was an intentional act. I know kind of under the cross-examination, they were kind of trying to frame it as maybe someone else did it. There were female fingerprints found.
Male DNA, yeah.
Exactly. But he seemed firm that Sean Combs, aka Diddy, might have been the one responsible for what had happened to his car, which was never able to be repaired after the fact.
And of course, there were never criminal charges filed. So we have to be clear on that. But Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for giving us a glimpse into the courtroom where we can't have cameras. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Kid Cudi didn't say anything as he left federal court after testifying. He got into a Cadillac Escalade and left, but he posted a video on X.
Hey guys, so I just want to say, man, I've been seeing all the love and support, and I just want to say thank you so much, man. People have been hitting me up the past week, just checking in, and even today, and it really means a lot to me, man. You guys are the best. I love y'all. This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me. And I love y'all, man. Big love. Go stream Neverland.
So let's talk about Kid Cudi's testimony. I want to bring in Nima Rahmani. He's an entertainment lawyer, also a former federal prosecutor. So he knows all about this stuff. So obviously they're bringing Kid Cudi and Nima to talk about this thing about the car and the car being blown up or set on, the Molotov cocktail. It wasn't really blown up, but there was obvious damage to the vehicle. And this plays into the RICO charge, the racketeering conspiracy charge. Does this really, in your opinion, really back up that charge?
I think it does, Anjanette. Maybe this is the former federal prosecutor in me. This is why. Cassie testified that Combs made the threat directly to blow up the car. Maybe we expected a kind of a mob-style explosion, but arson doesn't require that, right? A Molotov cocktail in your porch that burns it is enough. And the reason I like this is obviously the defense got out that, it wasn't definitively tied to Combs and that the DNA in the vehicle was a female's. Right. But I think there's enough circumstantial evidence, given the threat and the timing, for the jurors to believe that it was Combs. And I like these types of predicate acts because it allows the prosecution to somehow potentially get to racketeering without proving sex trafficking. I think they've proven sex trafficking, but let's say the jurors think that this was all consensual, the freak-offs. You have arson, you have extortion, you have blackmail, you have kidnapping, you have other potential activities that can get you that pattern of racketeering without sex trafficking.
So I want to break that down a little bit, and we're going to get to that. But you made two good points there. On cross-examination, Brian Steele, got out that, there was female DNA that they tested for in the car. So, we don't know that Combs's DNA was ever linked to this. He's accused of running a criminal enterprise. So it's not like he would have gotten his hands dirty and done this himself. He would have had somebody else do it possibly. But, they didn't
explicitly tie it to Combs, but Combs apparently said a couple years later, hey man, I'm sorry about all that. That was my girl. I thought we were homies. So he kind of apologized for it. But then Brian Steele also brings up this whole thing about, Cassie playing Kid Cudi. He felt that she had played him. And that I think could be very powerful for the jury. Don't you think that could be powerful for the jury? Because it goes to possibly, as you brought up, you don't think they've proven sex trafficking, but it could go to this whole thing about Cassie, the defense argument that she's an opportunist.
Yeah, I think the government has proven sex trafficking, but I know people watching, some of them don't believe they have. But you're right, Anjanette. Brian Steele's one of the best. I mean, obviously, we covered him for many months on the Young Thug case. It seems like a never-ending trial. And so the fact that he was added to the team to cross-examine this witness really shows how good he is. I agree with you. I thought he got 3 very good points out. The first is with respect to the arson, that really there's no direct evidence tying Diddy to it. Maybe the threat and the apology years later. I also thought that there was good evidence that Cassie might have talked about physical harm that she suffered by Combs, but she never mentioned any sexual assault or sexual abuse. That was a very important point that came out during cross. And then, like you said, the fact that Cassie was playing both of them, I thought that was a good point that came out as well. Maybe she wasn't the victim that she's saying that she is. Again, not saying I believe it, but what you see the defense trying to do here is build Cassie up. And this was a theme even in their opening statement when Tenny Garagos got up there and said that this is a strong, capable woman who was making her own decisions, and she chose to participate in these freak-offs. And she's the one who broke up with Combs years later. She was dating other guys at the same time. So I understand and I like what the defense is doing, and I think that is really part of their strategy in this case.
So let's go now to the RICO charge, because when I think of RICO charges and racketeering conspiracy, it's rooted in and it came from, the mob. And I think of the mob setting up businesses, the rackets, to commit crimes, or they're running businesses to cover up crimes. This seems a little bit different to me because, yes, Sean Combs was an entrepreneur setting up Bad Boy Records and running, fashion labels, all these different things. And it seems like the government is saying he used his business to cover up and commit crimes. So it seems almost kind of like a little bit different in that respect. But you're saying you think they will get to the racketeering charge, because right now I'm seeing little pieces of that. I'm seeing, obviously we saw the extortion with Regina Ventura, Cassie's mother. Now we're seeing a possible arson. It sounds like it probably was tied to Sean Combs, but not definitively. You think they will get there, that they'll be proving that Bad Boy Records was a criminal enterprise?
I do. And like you said, Anjanette, historically racketeering was used for the mob or cartels or criminal street gangs, right? You actually have a criminal enterprise. And that's how it was used for decades since the law was passed in the 70s. And obviously states ended up passing their own version of RICO statutes. But we have seen a tremendous growth in use of RICO and racketeering statutes. Obviously, we saw it in other sex trafficking cases, R. Kelly and Nexium. We even saw it in the Donald Trump Fulton County case in Georgia. So this is a great tool for prosecutors. I'm not saying that it's appropriate, but prosecutors love it because with RICO, you bring in a lot of people and you bring in a lot of evidence into the case. You can have RICO acts that are state charges. You can have RICO acts that are outside the statute of limitations. And by bringing everyone in, you can really lean on them if you're a prosecutor. You can get people to flip and cooperate. Otherwise, they could be charged with a RICO conspiracy, even if they were just buying, baby oil and lube and condoms for the freak-offs and cleaning them up afterwards, right? Even though they didn't participate in the sex acts, if they were co-conspirators or they're aiding and abetting, they could be charged substantively in a RICO conspiracy. But let's just take a step back and go through some of these elements. Like you said, the criminal enterprise, it doesn't have to be a rigid organization. Under the law, it's just a loose association of two or more people. If there's an agreement to do something unlawful, those are elements of a RICO conspiracy.
Very interesting, because a lot of people are saying this is thin. This may be overcharged, but it sounds like you don't think that.
Well, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I'm a current victim's lawyer, so I might be a little bit biased, but I think there is enough here. You have Sean Diddy Combs, the head of this organization, right? And what he does, whether it's extorting Regina Ventura, he has his people do it for him, right? Whether it's blowing up the car, even the threat that he made. Regina Ventura said that Combs said that it wouldn't be him personally who hurts Cassie and Kid Cudi. It would be someone else. And in fact, Combs would be out of the country at the time. So he's not doing this himself. You know, look, there's a reason you have Kaplan and James, the personal assistants, say that, look, if I was buying, food or flights, I would charge the company card. But if I was doing something for the freak offs, I would be paying cash. And, Combs had his infamous Louis Vuitton bag with thousands and thousands of dollars in cash. Look, there's nothing wrong with paying cash, but when you're using your company card for certain things and you're paying cash for drugs and sex workers and, lube and condoms, I mean, the jurors aren't stupid. That is illegal activity. That's why you're paying the cash, and that's why you're having your underlings do it.
Let's go back to Kid Cudi now. So who do you think scored more points with Kid Cudi, the government or the defense? Because it seemed to me that they both scored points with him.
I thought it was a good cross-examination, but I really like him as a witness for the government. I think it's a very strong way to end before a 4-day weekend, because you got two things out of it. Obviously a jealous Combs who broke into his house, right? I mean, that's pretty crazy. And it just shows how dangerous he may be. And then you have this Molotov cocktail in his car. So, and really the way it ended, obviously Kid Cudi said he got played, but he also said that he broke up with Cassie because he was worried for his own safety and he didn't want to deal with the drama. This just goes to show that sort of pattern of violence and really paints a picture of a dangerous individual for the jury.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it. They liked him in
And let's not forget Oprah. And why is Sean Diddy Combs suddenly the villain of Hollywood, facing charges that could lock him away for life, while the so-called elite, well, they get to walk away free? What if I told you Diddy's not the mastermind, but a pawn in a sinister game to shield real puppet masters of Tinseltown? Buckle up, guys, because this conspiracy, it runs deeper than you think. And the truth might just piss you off.
We're just starting to scratch the surface of what this case, this case is going to touch and involve.
That's why you gotta come at me, because part of the deal for you to be a daughter and get out of jail is that you promise that you're gonna go pull my coat.
We are going down the rabbit hole and peeling back the curtain on one of the juiciest conspiracies to rock Hollywood in decades. Today, we're going to be diving headfirst into the explosive theory that Sean Diddy Combs, the hip-hop mogul turned tabloid target, is being thrown under the bus to protect a shadowy cabal of Hollywood's untouchable elites. We've got timelines, receipts, and questions that'll make you rethink everything you thought you knew about power, fame, and betrayal in the entertainment world. When did Diddy become the fall guy? Let's start at the beginning, because the timeline of Diddy's downfall is so perfectly orchestrated. It's almost like it was scripted by a Hollywood screenwriter with a vendetta. Sean Diddy Combs, once the golden boy of hip hop, built an empire with Bad Boy Records. He also had fashion lines and those infamous white parties that were the hottest ticket in town. Back in the 90s and 2000s, Diddy was untouchable, rubbing shoulders with A-listers like Jay-Z, Beyonce, and even political heavyweights. Let's not forget Oprah, as well as Prince Harry, Ellen. The list goes on and on of heavyweights that were surrounding Diddy, not just, publicly at his big parties that he had. We're talking about business ventures, interviews, collaborations. I mean, there is not a celebrity that we can think of, big name, that was not part of Diddy's world, including Leonardo DiCaprio. But fast forward to November 2023, and the cracks start showing. Cassie Ventura, of course, you guys know who she is, Diddy's former girlfriend, files that bombshell lawsuit accusing him of rape, physical abuse, and forcing her into sex acts with male prostitutes while he watched and did a lot of other things. This wasn't just a lawsuit. It was the spark that lit a wildfire. By September of 2024, Diddy's arrested in Manhattan on federal charges of racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation for prostitution. And it's a 14-page indictment that reads like a crime novel. Prosecutors claim that Diddy ran a criminal enterprise for decades, using his empire to abuse, threaten, and coerce women, all while his employees and associates allegedly helped to cover it up. But then there's the bizarre details about the 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant found during the raids of his home, because apparently that's normal for a music mogul, right? But here's where it gets suspicious. The speed of the takedown is unreal. Within months, Diddy goes from hosting star-studded galas to sitting in a Brooklyn jail cell, denied bail, and his trial is set for May of 2025. Doesn't that feel a little too convenient? Why is the government moving at lightning speed against Diddy when other high-profile cases drag on for years? And why are the headlines screaming his name, but silent about the countless celebrities who partied at his side for decades? Is Diddy a sacrificial lamb for something bigger? Now, let's get to the meat of this conspiracy. The idea that Diddy's been set up as the fall guy to protect Hollywood's real power players, well, there's a lot of credence to it. Think about it. Diddy's white parties weren't just parties. They were the epicenter of networking, where politicians, actors, musicians, and moguls mingled in a haze of champagne and debauchery. If Diddy's indictment is to be believed, these events were also ground zero for alleged crimes like sex trafficking and abuse. But here's the million-dollar question. If Diddy was orchestrating this so-called criminal enterprise, how did none of his famous guests notice any of it? Are we supposed to believe that Justin Bieber, Mariah Carey, Jennifer Lopez, Ashton Kutcher, LeBron James, the list goes on and on, Al Sharpton, guys, this is far-reaching. Are we supposed to believe that they had no idea what was going on all of these decades? Not a single one of these people knew a thing about what Diddy was really doing? So you're telling me they were just sipping cocktails and dancing, oblivious to the alleged orgies and coercion happening behind closed doors? Or is it more likely that Diddy's been hung out to dry to keep the spotlight off the bigger names who were complicit or worse, involved in what was going on? And don't forget, the mainstream hasn't talked about it. Neither has the government talked about it. There are people who were children at the time that are now coming forward, have been coming forward, some of them for years, talking about how they were trafficked through Diddy's parties. Before we ever even knew about all of the freak-offs and things that happened, these people have been claiming for years that they were part of an organization that would bring kids in as party favors for these freak-offs. Now, Cassie hasn't mentioned that with hers, but Diddy was having freak-offs in multiple locations at multiple times with multiple people. It wasn't just Cassie. Some are even claiming that the arrest of Diddy was to distract from the 2024 presidential election, suggesting he's a scapegoat for some corrupt politicians. And then there's Uncle Luke and 50 Cent, both hinting that Diddy's legal troubles stem from his 2023 lawsuit against Diageo, the liquor giant, for racial discrimination, a move that might have pissed off the wrong people in high places. When you start connecting the dots, it's hard not to wonder, is Diddy being pursued for stepping out of line? Or is it just he's a designated patsy to keep the real culprits out of the public eye? And let's talk about receipts, because this conspiracy isn't just wild speculation. There's enough smoke here to suggest a raging fire. First, the indictment itself is curiously vague about other players. It mentions Diddy's associates and employees, but doesn't name a single celebrity or power broker who might have been involved in these alleged freak off parties or some of the trafficking. So, why the silence? If Diddy was running a decades long criminal operation, wouldn't there be a trail leading to others? And then there's the surveillance video from 2016 showing Diddy assaulting Cassie in a hotel hallway, a clip that conveniently surfaced just as the lawsuits start piling up. It's damning, no question about it. But why did it take years for this to come to light? Who else might be on those tapes that prosecutors aren't talking about, that they are protecting? Then another red flag? The sudden flood of conspiracy theories linking Diddy to everything from Tupac's murder to Kim Porter's death in 2018. Porter, who was Diddy's ex and the mother of his children, some of his children, died of pneumonia. And the rumors that this was not just pneumonia, which I just did a video on today that you need to watch, they have been going on for years, but they exploded suddenly with all this fervor, with people talking about Diddy being involved in that murder, and not just alleged murder, but tons of other murders that have happened throughout the years. And while these were not new allegations, these are not new rumors, these were not new things. Some people even have witnesses to some of the stuff that has happened, but the government ignored it all until suddenly when Cassie came out with her lawsuit. And some of these other lawsuits, specifically Little Rod Jones, names Lucian Grange, who practically runs the music industry, as a person who came in and have private freak off with just Diddy and himself, suggesting that Diddy was part of a bigger network in the music industry where he didn't just come up with the freak offs on his own. He was groomed into it as well. He learned this is a way to control people. Now, I have spoken about this before, and I plan to do a big deep dive on it. I may end up having to do it on Patreon. I'll let you guys know, because this is information that YouTube does not want out there. But there is an investigator by the name of Whitney Webb. She's written several books, and the two books that stand out is One Nation Under Blackmail, Volume 1 and Volume 2, where she details painstakingly the connections of the government, and not just our government, but other governments, of how they use blackmail in order to control politicians and Hollywood celebrities. And she's not just speculating. These aren't just rumors on social media or gossip. She has documented evidence, tapes, things that have been released even by our own government, things that our own government has admitted to, where she ties together the mob. And I mean, it's crazy. Now, recently, this was all, I will say this, those books, she initially was trying to investigate Jeffrey Epstein, and the network that helped control and to, bring him to light. And there's a lot that this goes into, not just her book, but other witnesses who were children at the time trafficked through Jeffrey Epstein. But in particular, while she's unpacking this Jeffrey Epstein, it just started to just spread into all different circles, not just with the government, going into the music industry and Hollywood. But recently, I'm going to say a month or two ago, Whitney Webb published I don't want to say it's an article, but it is a very long piece in which she shows the direct connection between Jeffrey Epstein and Diddy. And again, not speculation, not rumor, hard evidence of how they were intertwined, and how Diddy was used as a puppet to put a control over the hip hop industry, over music, and particularly to control the Black community with all types of things. Guys, it is so amazing. Like I said, I think we're going to have to do it on Patreon, because these are things that I will definitely be censored on. Even now, the videos I'm doing about Diddy, randomly, they will get shut down out of the blue. You may be watching one. You guys even leave comments about how you're watching a video and it's suddenly taken down. And I don't know why. I'm not saying anything too crazy. I'm just reporting. But YouTube, or the powers that be behind, the puppet masters behind the wheel or the button, I will say, will just shut it down. and I have to keep editing and trying to re-upload, to take out certain words, to take out certain things that I want to talk about. So guys, be on the lookout for the Patreon. I may put the link in here, just so you guys can take a look at it. I'm just now starting it. So bear with me. There's not a lot there yet, but I will update you as I'm going to put that stuff out, because it is very important that we talk about it. Now, getting back to things been orchestrated, let's not forget about the bizarre AI generated Justin Bieber song, Lost Myself at a Diddy Party, that went viral after his arrest. Now, some people will say, oh, it's just a social media user or somebody just put that together. If you believe the things that come out on social media are just randoms who decided to post something, think again. That is not the case. A lot of these things are actually started by the puppet masters, I would say, people, the music industry, whether it's Hollywood. The way you have to understand how PR works, how they go into forums that you think are just regular people talking, but they are actually ops, people who have been sent in there. Think of it in the same way of how they catch predators, how they will have government agencies or government operatives that will go into these forums, discuss things, try to pull out, try to entice these pedophiles in order to get them to be arrested. These aren't normal people. We've seen it also with other operations dealing with drugs and gangs and those types of things, where it looks like a normal person is sending that out, but it's actually, again, a Fed, an investigator, a police officer, you name it, are the ones behind it. Not only do they monitor social media, but they steer and try to control social media by spinning narratives and then getting bots and others to push that out. So while that AI generated just looks dumb and all of that, you have to understand all of this stuff started really reaching a fever pitch and coming out right around Diddy's arrest, the raids on his home, the arrest, the lawsuit from Cassie. And is this all organic, or is it meant to throw us off the scent of the real people, the real criminals, the real people who set up and have been doing freak offs for decades before Diddy even was part of this? So what does this mean for Hollywood? Let's unpack this. If Diddy's being sacrificed, what's the end game? Why would Hollywood's elite need a fall guy right now? And why are they so desperate to hide? The entertainment industry has a long history of protecting its own. Think Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, or even R. Kelly. But those are people who are operated in plain sight for years before facing consequences. And why did their cases come forward at the time that they did, when, again, their crimes or alleged crimes were known for a long time, often decades? These things were not new to the feds. They're not new to the government. But it just seems so peculiar that at certain times and over, we see these high profile kind of men take these falls, and it seems perfectly timed as a distraction. Like every year we're getting something new, all in a way to keep us looking here and not over there. In Diddy's case, it doesn't feel any different. It's like a deliberate distraction to keep us from digging deeper. And consider this: Diddy's white parties weren't just celebrity hangouts. They were power hubs where deals were made, careers were launched, and where a lot of these secrets were kept. If the allegations are true, these events could implicate a web of influential figures, politicians, CEOs, maybe even law enforcement, who benefited from the culture of silence. Remember, Diddy has all of these blackmail tapes on all of these different people who participated in these things. Why aren't we able to at least know some of the names, some of the people, the influential people? Like when they went in, these weren't just all these videos were all Cassie. No, we know that even from the raids, it was reported, and other people have spoken out, that Diddy had cameras all over his property, inside and out, in different rooms, in every single room, hallway, even bathrooms, at multiple angles. And that he, just like, remember I told you, one nation under blackmail, this is standard operating procedure for the government. It goes back to J. Edgar Hoover. where they would actually try to find a person's sexual, I guess, predication, like whether they were into men, whether they were into children, whatever it was, or maybe they were just cheating and having all of these orgies. It got to the point where the government was organizing these things and filming them in order to get blackmail on these individuals who were becoming politicians. Okay. It ties back to the mob and all sorts of things. So Diddy doing this blackmail, this sexual blackmail, this is not new. This is how the government works. So you know that they have tapes, they have all this evidence of other people. Why hasn't it come forward? Is it perhaps because a lot of these celebrities have become now feds, informants? There has been rumors for years, and even people that used to work for Diddy that said he has been a federal informant for decades. And did it all start when he was up and coming in the music industry? He was turned out by the higher ups, knowing that they had blackmail evidence on him, getting him engaged in these freak off type of parties, sexual blackmail. And that's what kept him in line. And then because of his deviant mind, he didn't just fall back or was scared. It empowered him to do these things to others, anybody else who came into his orbit. And he was collecting all of these tapes, collecting all of this information through these decades on these different people. And now, again, I want to say, look at the silence that we're getting from Hollywood. All of his friends, all these people that were associated with Diddy that were so happy to be, part of his videos, showing at the white party, doing business with him, collaborations, giving speeches, standing up for him for different things, congratulating him. All of them wanted to be in his orbit. All of them made sure they were in his orbit. But now there's silence. None of them have a word to say, except for I just did a video about Jamie Foxx making jokes about Diddy trying to kill him and that he left Diddy's parties early and he doesn't even like baby oil. Then there's a quote about baby oil being on pizza, and you know about pizza, then you know, which I'm going to talk about on my Patreon because that definitely will be censored off of YouTube. As you start to peel back the layers and think of how this all worked, those raids on Diddy's house, was it to get all of their blackmail evidence back from him that he was already supplying? It's not making sense. Again, there have to be more victims. Even we know from lawsuits, more celebrities involved who are named in lawsuits that somehow the government is ignoring. And instead of a wide-reaching investigation, we're getting a laser focus on Diddy alone. Why aren't prosecutors chasing down the guest list? Where are the subpoenas for the A-listers who partied with him? And why does it feel like the media's been handed a script to paint Diddy as the sole villain, the same way they did with Jeffrey Epstein? And we know he was not alone. The more you dig, the more it smells like a cover-up. And the louder the silence is from the Hollywood elite, the more questions we need to ask. Now, here's where it gets even messier. Diddy is no saint, but he's also not this omnipotent mastermind the feds are making him out to be. For years, he was celebrated as a visionary, a Black entrepreneur who turned a hustle into a billion-dollar empire. He had the ear of presidents, the loyalty of artists, and the clout to make or break careers. But if he was so powerful, how did he become the fall guy? How does a man who once seemed untouchable end up in a jail cell while his peers stay silent or slip away unscathed? The contradiction is glaring. Either Diddy was the kingpin of his criminal empire, or he was a cog in a much bigger machine and disposable to who the real power players are. And let's talk about the timing. Why now? Why Diddy? Diddy's been dodging rumors of bad behavior for decades, from the 1999 club shooting with Shine to whispers about his treatment of artists like Mace and The Lox. Yet, it's only after his Diageo lawsuit and Cassie's allegations that the walls started to close in. Is it a coincidence that his downfall aligns with a moment when public trust in institutions is at an all-time low and people are hungry for a scapegoat? Or is this a calculated move to throw us a bone? Diddy's head is on a platter. So now we just stop asking the bigger questions. We stop looking for the bigger fish. Hollywood's hypocrisy is being exposed. Let me be clear. All of this is infuriating. Hollywood loves to preach about justice, equality, and holding abusers accountable. But when it's one of their own, they clam up faster than you can say Oscar speech. Where's the outrage from the stars who dance with Diddy's parties? Where is the solidarity for the alleged victims from the same industry that championed Me Too? The silence is deafening, and it's proof that Tinseltown's moral compass only points one way, toward self-preservation. If Diddy's guilty, he deserves to face the music. But don't let them fool you into thinking he's the only one. This isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about a system that lets powerful people skate while tossing someone like Diddy to the wolves to keep the heat off of themselves, to keep us distracted. And the fact that we're just eating it up, clicking on every headline, sharing every meme, they're trying to make us complicit in the game. We're so busy dunking on Diddy that we're not asking the real question, who's next? And why aren't they in the crosshairs? Now, hold on. Because here's where it gets a little bit more crazy. There's a rumor swirling online about a so-called Diddy list, a secret roster of high-profile names who allegedly attended his infamous parties and might be tied to the same crimes he's accused of and worse. No, this list hasn't been verified, and it could be pure internet faction, but let's be honest. Where, again, I keep saying where there's smoke, there's fire. And that's why on my channel, I have started not just reporting on the Diddy case, but I'm making these connections to all of these celebrities who are now dead silent. We're going to move into politicians. We're going to move into not just Hollywood celebrities and music artists, but also these industry execs. And then behind them, there is another layer. People just don't trust the official narrative anymore. And they're starting to wonder if Diddy's arrest is just the tip of the iceberg. What if this list exists? And it includes names so big that exposing them would bring Hollywood crashing down, bring the government crashing down. We're talking about industries crashing down. What if the feds already have it, but they're sitting on it to protect their own interests? And here's the kicker. Some are even linking this to the California wildfires, claiming they were set to destroy evidence tied to Diddy's Holmby Hills mansion. Sounds crazy, right? But when you've got a case this explosive with so many unanswered questions, you can't help but wonder, what are they not telling us? And especially when you consider all of the information out there on how these wildfires were not natural and spontaneous. They line up with Governor Gavin Newsom's plan to put a high-speed railway through California. It also coincides with them trying to build this reimagined city of LA, where people did not want to sell their properties in order for this vision to come forward. But with the Olympics going to be in LA in a few years, there is so much evidence about this was purposely done in order to destroy where LA was, in order to build something new so that the government can pay people off, for their property, maybe even not have to pay them the full amount of their property. But again, if there are a lot of people who were living in these homes decades, did not want to move, is this a way to force them out? Is this a way to get them under their control and use them in order to build their bigger purpose? There have been, when I tell you, I was, because there's so much going on, I wasn't able to continue to go through that investigation, but that again is something that I am looking at. And before you dismiss it as conspiracy, I'm telling you something very nefarious went on with that whole thing. So there you have it. The conspiracy that Diddy's being sacrificed to protect Hollywood's elite, political elite, laid bare for you to chew on. Is he a monster who deserves what's coming? I personally think he is. But I also think that he is a pawn in a much bigger game than him. I don't have all the answers right now, but I know one thing. The truth is out there, and it's not in the headlines that they're feeding us. But let me know, what do you think? Do you think he's just this fall guy, but he just deserves what happens? Or is this just a way to distract us from what is really going on, from not paying attention for the things that are happening in the shadows that they don't want us to see? And we know the mainstream media is complicit with this. Even to this day, they ignore hard facts, not just about Diddy, but numerous cases. Jeffrey Epstein, where they tried to make him like he was just one man doing all of this sex trafficking? Absolutely not. There are, like I said, in Whitney Webb's book, One Nation Under Blackmail, 2 books, she shows without a doubt all of the connections, the networks. There is a woman, actually, there is a man who went on another woman's podcast that's on YouTube, where she details being trafficked as a child with some high profile names, serious names. And she's been talking about this for years. There was a guy that came on her show, and he's also been talking for years, where he says that he was basically, as a child, born at kind of like a breeding farm, I guess you would say. And it was all these other children who are born into this, and they are conditioned with sexual abuse. Okay, guys, they are conditioned with this from the time that they are born. It is very dark and disturbing. Again, I will not be giving details on here. It'll be on my other, on Patreon or somewhere else. And he talks about how Jeffrey Epstein was like, he was part of that Jeffrey Epstein was groomed in that same way. That's where he comes from. And the things that he outlines, the things that he said was done, how some of them were just, I will not say it because it will disturb people at a level that is just unreal. But these things have been corroborated by different victims, but the government continues to ignore them. And you have to wonder why. These victims have been silenced. How they're champion, women being assaulted, or the Me Too movement, all of these different things that were also pushed by our government at the time to put it to the forefront to distract us. They will bring these convenient stories to the surface, but then they completely ignore all of the other stuff that's going on. And the more I look at it, the more disgusted I am. At one point, it brought me fear.
Coffee, follow me.